Hi there, and welcome to the 20 Minute Moat, a Verloop.io podcast. Happy holidays to you. I'm Anush Fernandez, and I hope you're doing well, enjoying the holidays and staying safe, maybe even exchanging a gift or two. Today, we have a gift of our own for you, a two-part episode with the head of product and design for BigBasket, Tejas Vyas. This was originally supposed to be a single episode, but after a couple of attempts, we realized we couldn't actually fit all the stuff that we spoke about in one sitting. At least not without cutting out some of the real gems anyway. So, we decided to break this down into two halves. In the first half, we talk about what the average day looks like for the head of product and design for one of India's fastest growing companies through the 2020 pandemic.
There are 40 to 60 projects at any given point in time, and anything going bad.
What his experience was like going back to college in his 30s.
I had a very low understanding of how the world generally works from a management perspective.
And his thoughts on what makes a great product manager and leader.
So many product managers just, do what they're told.
What about the second half? Well, you'll just have to wait till the end of the episode to find out. We'll start off by just doing a quick intro for you, right? So if you could just introduce yourself and we'll take it from there.
Hi everyone, Tejas here. I head the product and design at BigBasket. I hope BigBasket doesn't need an introduction. I hope all of you are buying groceries from there. And I have a master's in computer science and a leadership course from NCL.
So what does the head of product for BigBasket do? What does his day look like?
A lot of it is strategy. A lot of it is defining where your projects are, how does it look like, and probably envisioning where the world is moving towards. One needs to be on top of everything that's going around in the space. Then let's look at the execution elements. A lot of things going wrong in each of the individual projects. There are 40 to 60 projects at any given point in time, and anything going bad, well, need to go do a deep dive. The third, very important, and something I've learned a lot in the last 3 years is the people part of it. Keeping your team motivated and happy and asking the right questions, coaching them while not prescribing. I think that's very important. And then finally, being on top of every possible email that comes your way where a lot of actionables are needed. Well, that is the hardest part, being on top of emails, because you can't be doing this all day. So you need to batch your time and respond very quickly to each one of them.
Your education by no means has been traditional. You didn't go to the US, you went to Canada. You were offered a PhD with a scholarship that you turned down to come back to India. But I think the most non-traditional thing that you did was your bridge leadership course that you did while you held a super senior position in product at BigBasket. There is a lot of prejudice, I'd argue wrongly, against people who sort of take up these bridge leadership courses, right? Talk to me about your experience with that.
Sure. So I was at a very senior level in the product function within BigBasket. I was in a role which needed a lot of understanding of perspectives through and through. I had a very low understanding of how the world generally works from a management perspective and also from a leadership perspective. So my intention for this course was more from a learning perspective. I went in there primarily to understand marketing. It covered a gamut of supply chain. It covered a gamut of human behavior, investing, finance. Now, being in product, I definitely need to be good at all these and also have a good understanding of leadership, because at the end of the day, a product is an amalgamation of all these things. And this was also not a full-time course. These 9 modules spread over 9 weeks, spread all over the world. It also gave me an opportunity to get insight from different industries, how people operate. So what does someone in the aerospace industry do? What does someone in banking do, fintech, or someone from manufacturing do? The people that I was going to meet would come from all these streams and with varied experiences, someone with 20 years of experience and someone from maybe just barely 7 or 8, right? So my intention was to go out there purely from a learning perspective. Primary difference between what I learned and what I didn't know was bringing a theoretical understanding of things which exist with data. I had no understanding of what is the right scientific way to invest, for that matter, because your operational research would tell us things that there are these 3 models that exist. Now you can read a lot of books, etc., but that's what a MBA school gives you, right? So this is a compressed MBA in all its form and structure, right? So there's a lot of data, there's a lot of frameworks, and there's a lot of models, which is typically what we use in product too. So putting in relevant amount of data, at least you have a worldview of what is right, what models work, and then what is traditionally wrong. And of course, not everything whatever was taught out there was something that I imbibed, because my own experiences suggested that there are better ways to do things than what was also being taught.
So, given that you were holding at what at that point of time was a very senior like role in product for this company that was doing astonishingly well for itself, how do you manage the logistics of education and work?
Great. So I think that definitely needed the support of my company. Since this was 9 weeks over a course of 1 year, I did have to go out and speak to my managers, who were very, very happy and very open about it. And I think it just worked out. So it all depends on how you plan and structure this. So what I would do is, before every such module, I would give some kind of an intimation that, hey, this session is coming up. I would let my team know. I would let my managers know, people who I work with closely, that, hey, I have something coming up a week or two later. So I'm going to do all these things. Is there anything else you want me to do, or let me know? In case there is anything, you can always reach out to me on my number. So because these are senior executives, you could always pick up a call if there's something really urgent, right? But I mean, that didn't happen, touch wood. I think everything worked out very well. So anyone who's seeking out such opportunities, I don't foresee most organizations having a problem, because in fact a lot of organizations would even choose to fund this, which was also an option for me. I personally didn't choose to, but I think most organizations would be very happy if, it's more of an HR initiative also. There's the employee wants to learn and you're supporting it, right? So that was quite easy actually at the end of the day, Anush.
Right. Do you find yourself recommending such courses to your juniors now because you've seen gains out of it? Do you find people superstars in like product who you say, you know what you need? Some human skills?
Definitely. See, I think leadership by itself, it's very hard to kind of deconstruct it and teach people human skills. You learn as part of the job, but let me ask you, how do you go about and coach and tell someone this is how you need to behave with people? It's very hard for a manager to do that, right? Because people imbibe all this as part of their childhood, and for them to change, either they are self-aware and they understand this very well. It becomes slightly more of a non-work conversation when you're teaching people soft skills and how you conduct and what is maturity, what is the definition of maturity. So in a sense, leadership has all these nodes under it, has all these leaves under it. Understanding that at a deep level is important. So my recommendation for anyone to choose a course is completely based on two factors, Anush. I don't think everyone needs it. It all depends on what you want to do. Point number one, if you're out there to seek a better job or a better position, I don't think these courses are going to matter. Whatever you do, there are people who are doing n such course from n such university. I don't think this is going to make a change in their lives, right? From getting a job perspective. It does open up some avenues in a way where someone might just get you in for an interview, for that matter, or someone from your network could open up an interview. I don't believe it opens up an opportunity for one to get a job. That's number one. Number two, I think the value that one gets by getting a holistic worldview is a lot more than just going there and getting this for the sake of a degree. If you're out there to just get a name on your CV, well, there are these risks, right? You're paying a huge cost for it, right? But if you're open to feedback, if you're open to learning and understanding how the world works, and also internally understand that you might not always be right, then I think it's something which is worth it. And on the understanding that you will also ultimately use some of the good things into imbibe it within yourself, right? You take the good things out and use it wherever applicable.
While you are CPO and design head for BigBasket now, you did join the organization in a fairly humble capacity. I think you were a technical architect. You were also their first tech hire, and I think fifth or sixth hire overall. What was it like joining BigBasket that early? Did you know from the outset that this was going to be a company that changed the game?
Sure. I think so. I had already built a startup before this, and I was even doing freelancing. So I think what picked for me, more as a general thought going out to all the listeners, is I think you need to connect with your founders very well if you're joining an early stage startup as early as this. There is a sense of purpose that comes in. There is an alignment in terms of values. There is a direction that both of you align towards, right? You and the founders at this earlier stage, right? If you go one level, say two years later, maybe post Series A, you might not even get an opportunity to talk to a founder for that matter. But if you're someone who believes you want to join an early stage startup, I think there should be an element of a common shared purpose. So I think that is what connected me to the founders. I saw the sense of purpose, and I had complete confidence in my abilities. They saw that in me, and I believed and I trusted that this is really a great value proposition. Now, this common shared purpose, it needed a lot of things that should work both ways, right? It needed a complete trust and understanding from the founders on me, because I was still a hire at the end of the day, and I needed the trust from the founders that they will trust me that whatever I do from a technology side is for the benefit of the organization. Once that alignment, once that understanding happened within the first few days of working, I think there was no looking back from there. And still over 8 years here, and we still maintain that same level of trust. I think ruthless trust, I would say. Yeah, it's been accelerating, very fulfilling, and very purpose driven, as I say, as it started on day one.
I think your values are incredibly important, right? Because on a day-to-day basis, I think BigBasket touches more lives than almost any other startup in the ecosystem. From the number of like farmers that you interact with, to the number of employees you hire, to the number of customers you serve, I think those numbers are just unrivaled, right? Talk to me about your founders and what values they hold that you see the organization having.
Well, I think it's built a lot on three things. The values they hold dear. I think brutal customer service. Always listening to your customers. Your customers, in all likelihood, will be trying to give you a lot of insights, and listen to them. Second, which is a lot more fundamental, is that you build sustainably. You're not here to actually, build a high growth platform without looking at a sustainable growth, because history has proved that most companies die out when they don't think sustainably. At every point in time, at every notion, at every product spec, there is a cost element that comes into the entire as an important variable in every decision we make. How much does this cost? If you have to take an initiative, what does it mean? And why do we do that? It might look petty at times, but it is important to understand the larger picture. And number three, at a core fundamental level, which is even non-negotiable for that matter. The other two, you might want to do certain growth, or you might want to say, okay, I'll forget the cost attached to this, right? And maybe some customer choices are very hard to make. But the third part is the most critical. You will never do anything which is, as you said, jugadu, or something which is illegal or unlawful. I think that's completely out of the equation, right? And then we have instances where something which was not a mistake and was done purposely, which has an integrity aspect to it, they don't stick around. I mean, we don't let them stick around in BigBasket.
Now, obviously, these are views that you've sort of built and honed through your several years of WorkX, right? But I think one of the places where you self-admittedly just absolutely excel at is product leadership, right? Let's start just from the absolute basics. What is product leadership?
Oh, okay, so here is the biggest conundrum, Manush. Product leadership is not even something that there is any literature on, or because the product itself has evolved only in the last decade, I would say. So my submission here, Anush, is that product leadership is an amalgamation of all product thinking together, bringing in a huge element of strategy and people management. And this is incredibly hard, and I'll tell you why. A product manager at the end of the day is an independent contributor. It's a product manager's vision which actually results in bringing out fantastic products. Now you can say, does a product leader make these calls? Well, it doesn't matter where the core problem statement comes from, right? Finally, there is a product manager whose vision comes out for the world to use. So what does the product leader do here? Well, the product leader in essence is clearing all the gaps in this journey for a product manager. So if there is a small piece that is being missed out by the product manager, the product leader ensures that all those gaps are being covered. The product leader is not designing this product by himself. He just has maybe an overarching vision and is trying to ask the right questions and plug in those holes. So it's a very synergetic relationship which is built a lot on trust, wherein the product leader has to trust the capabilities and the ownership of the product manager in defining this. And that is where the leadership element comes, right? And the product manager owning that whole piece while still being open to get feedback on a product area, which from someone who is a reporting manager or a superior, right? So it's kind of a very synergetic thing. Well, that's what leadership is about, right? The ownership actually goes down. In most setups, right, the dictum comes from the top. Okay, you have to do it. You have to do this, and this, right? And there are people who execute this. So if you look at product leadership, it's still a vastly misunderstood science. My submission here would be there's a lot of human element to this. There's a lot of bringing in the whole product pieces and plugging in all those aspects of product management. There is also a huge element of the product strategy and the vision on what one wants to build. So the product leader has to constantly seek out the opportunities in the market, what is going on in the competitive landscape, which is also what a product manager should be doing. But connecting the pieces, today, a product manager who takes care of only the application UI aspects, right? How does this product manager know what happens on the supply chain side? So a product leader has to connect all the pieces together, even including the business and the process aspects, right? The product manager could only bring in a bit of a worldview, which is little bit smaller than what a product leader could essentially bring in connecting the larger pieces. So that's typically the notion. And trust me, I mean, this is still again an evolving thing. What I just said is still my worldview, but there is no right or wrong answer here.
So what, according to you, makes a good product leader and B, a good product manager?
I think there's a lot of literature on a product manager. I think I actually bin it into some 5 specific nodes, right? If I bins, I would say. So a product manager at first has to have a superlative clarity of thought and structured thinking. This is pretty much a non-negotiable thing. So ability to break an ambiguous problem statement into a level of structure, which is a lot more palatable and can be communicated and evangelized easily, is the first most important thing. And this is non-negotiable. If someone doesn't have the clarity of thought, I think they should not get into it. The other complementary necessary attributes for a product manager, definitely someone who is a salesperson, who wears the hat of a salesperson, right, is able to evangelize and able to sell his product and is able to ensure a great amount of stakeholder satisfaction. Number 3 is a creative person by heart. I mean, you ask for a solution, the person shouldn't just be bamboozled. Okay, well, I don't know how to do it. Number 4 is an amazing data person and a scientific person by nature. So the creative part meant the artist, the data and the technology side of it is the complete scientific side of it, being very objective at everything. Finally, 5, well, this is your ability to communicate. This stands out. So you might have a lot of clarity of thought and a structured thinking, but are you able to communicate this as well as you could? You should be able to enunciate it very clearly. So these are 5 attributes, at least I look out for in product managers. Product leaders, well, definitely all these, and bring in a host of leadership skills and, you call it emotional quotient, having the emotional maturity and the ability to listen, to be able to, work well with others and get everyone on the same page. And also a strong risk-taking ability to say no to 10 other things, right? Because like you also called out, it's an ability to say no, which is a lot harder problem than anything else out there in product. So many product managers just, do what they're told just because they have to do it without yielding an ROI. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes, right? I think questioning and finding out why is this needed to be done is probably the most important role of product in anything, in any setup.
Well, that's it for this episode. As promised, we do have a sneak preview for the next episode and what it contains. And here's Tejas to take it away.
And on 23rd and 24th March, we lost 80% of our workforce in BigBasket. I know this is mind-numbing, but if you're 80% of your workforce and these are people who do the picking and do the deliveries, suddenly take off for their villages. And that is a point in time when every customer in the world is trying to reach out to BigBasket for their essentials. So in the history of supply chain, probably this would have been the biggest gap in terms of customers wanting produce or wanting essentials, and there is no supply.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the 20 Minute Moat presented by Verloop.io. We post new episodes, bonus content, and full interviews on our website and social media. Just visit verloop.io/podcast, no more. If you like what you heard, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you listen from.